Alright, we're here talking about the story circle. This is just a quick recap of the stuff that we did for this is like a Nano prep thing that the Tokyo Writers Group did, preparing for NaNoWriMo, which is coming up next month. So what we did is we wrote a story circle together, and then we basically had everybody think about what they're going to use the story circle for, and then next week we're going to brainstorm with it. So this is just a rundown for the people who missed the meeting and anybody else who's just interested. Step one is depending on no matter how much you've done for your story or prepared for your story now, just think of your story as X meets X when something else happens. So my story is Avatar Avatar: The Last Airbender meets The Walking Dead season 1, where there's lots of magic zombie fighting. Just something really simple. So the start of your story is basically to show your characters' active life, what they do in their if there was no plot, what would your character be doing? What's your character's just life like? What do they lose because of the plot? And how are they active? What do they do in their normal life? So the start, if you look at something like Star Wars, is just basically Luke's working on droids and he's living his farm life, wanting to go off and be a pilot in the future. It's nothing special, but it's showing him working on droid. It's showing him being active. He's not just sitting around being a super lazy character. The Wheel of Time, Rand is gathering all his stuff and going with his father, with beer and stuff, to have fun with his friends. He wants to enjoy his life. It's just a very basic opening start. How does the story start there? Something to think about here is what kind of world building you want to show in this opening piece, and what kind of genre. What do you want to show about the character? It's really good to show stuff about your character that's mostly what's it called? You want to show what kind of personality your character has here. So that's a really important thing. If you look, the map I'm making in the background is a random map I'm going to use for my story. It's going to be one of the forest scenes where there's going to be, it's kind of more of a, not really a marsh, but there's small lakes here. So I don't want to cut. I want the outside to all be land. Oh no, okay. I just did something. Anyways, so the next part is called the call. It's where your character kind of gets a motion forward. It's like your character learns something that's related to the plot. But the special thing about this is it's not always oh, your character's being called to adventure and he just denies it, he doesn't want to go. Oftentimes it is, but what this is your character's learning about the outside world, and either subconsciously or consciously, they gain a personal goal for the story. This personal goal is usually solved by part 5. In the case of Star Wars, Luke learns of the princess, and he wants to kind of save the princess or meet the princess. And this goal is solved in part 5, where he meets the princess for the first time. The same thing can be said about other stories. But I'm just kind of riffing right now, sorry. My story, the call, is where the character basically is told he needs to act more like the leader he's supposed to be, and to kind of, go spend more time with his family instead of being so selfish. So that adds stuff to his later on thing. Other things to think about is, how does this information, like how does this stuff, like the stuff you learn and like the character learns in the call, how does it make them think about their current life? Like what do they kind of think about in their current life? Like what do they decide is important? Like Luke, decides, it's like it's not so important to do anything, but he wants to go and you know, find out like who the princess is and what he can do to save the princess, or like to meet the princess, that kind of stuff. Um, Another thing you can think about is what does it like? What does this information, does it change the way they're doing their regular life stuff, or do they not change at all? Does something help them, or do they decide, nah, none of this really matters? That kind of thing. Like, so you can really think about like what is important for the character during that time. Um, Next is the inciting incident, or the change, like something that changes the character's life. During this, the character gains the plot goal. So they've gained their first goal, which is solved in part 5, their personal goal, and then they gain their plot goal, which is solved in part 8, the climax, right? So the plot goal, even if they don't realize they gained the plot goal is very kind of important for the character um, to move forward. I'm making highways too, because this is also a roaded area. My current world is going to be relatively high tech, but this is like a kind of forest drive path area, back road ish. Um, so one of the things you want to think, like if you look at Star Wars, for instance, Luke's family is all murdered. He's forced to leave home. He's forced to, you know, become a Jedi. He's forced to go and do Jedi things, I guess is the way to put that. Um, Sorry, I get really distracted when I'm making a map. Super OC or super ADD when it comes to some of this stuff. Um, but the plot goal he gains here unconsciously is he wants to defeat the Empire. Like he wants to, find a way to bring the Empire down, which is solved when he destroys the Death Star, because they basically killed his family. Um, so that's something you get from the characters. This. The housing are not exactly houses here, but they're kind of like just structures that are in place for now. Rolling hills, some places. So Another thing you really want to think about when looking at the change, the stuff your character's going through, is like, how does this external event take place? Like, what do the characters see when it's happening? Like, what do they go about doing? What is the event that leads to them acting like that? Like, what is the outside force? Because the big thing is it does have to be an outside force. Um, Next is the journey, the kind of the training montage, the part where the character really starts to progress and get better and better and better. This is usually the longest part of the story. Like, this usually takes up the most page time or screen time when you're writing. Um, this is in Star Wars is Luke going to the cantina, getting a ship, like having the bar fight, getting the ship, flying away, getting trapped, learning how to be a Jedi on the ship, getting trapped, having the adventure on the ship, breaking in, like having the idea to break in and try to rescue the princess. This is just showing the character progressing. I like to use a lot of try-fail cycles here, um, which is like your character has a small goal. Do they complete the goal? Yes, no. Um, what's the kind of downside to that? Like, if they complete the goal, like, yes, they complete the goal, but something worse happens. Like, yes, Luke actually learned how to work with the lightsaber thing, but Alderaan's destroyed. No, they weren't able to deliver the plans to they reached Alderaan, but no, they weren't able to deliver the plans to the princess, and they're caught by the Death Star. That kind of answer thing. Um, in my story, this is the character going, like, regaining his ability, escaping and dealing with magic zombies, um, and trying to adjust to the world, all while searching for his family. Um, the next thing you want to look at uh, is, I'm just gonna add more trees and I'm gonna erase everything. I'm gonna erase things to make roads later. Um, the next thing you want to look at when you're doing your story circle is the goal. Like, so this is, like, you're reaching your character goal. Like, so the goal that you gained in part 2, even if you don't know that's a goal your character gained, or even if the character doesn't know it's a goal they gained, this is a goal they, advance. Like, this is what they reach that goal in this part. Luke reaches the princess. He saves the princess, rescues her, because that's kind of something he wanted to do. Um, in the what's it called? In my story, this is where he reaches, like, he meets his like, he meets his family. Like, he's finally able to meet them despite the zombie apocalypse. Um, whoa. Um, I don't know how much I like the green. I might want to just change that completely. But yeah, so your character reaches the goal. In this, it's very important that you give, like, that your character, when they reach the goal, they gain something from it, because reaching the goal and paying the cost to reach that goal are your two keys to victory at the end of the story. Those are the two keys to victory at the end of the story: is reaching the goal and paying the cost. So, for example, in Star Wars, the goal he reaches the goal with the princess, and that gives him access to the Death Star plans. He needs the Death Star plans in order to destroy the Death Star, which is what the plot goal of defeating the Empire is. In my story, he gains friends. Like, he actually gains a group that he can work with. And then you have to pay the cost. And the cost is, in Star Wars, Part 6 is the cost, and the cost is Obi-Wan dying. Obi-Wan dies. That's, spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie. But yeah, Obi-Wan dies. After Obi-Wan dies, it makes Luke devastated, so he's kind of like down in the dumps. But it gives Luke the second part, the second key he needs to defeat the Empire. And the second key is Luke trusting in the Force. So Obi-Wan can now speak to him from beyond and tell him to trust in the Force, which happens later on. So this is a big key point that happens later. Oh, that's too big. I'm going to make a really big one right here. The God Tree. But yeah, so this there's so many key points to this one. It's like your character has to pay the price for reaching their goal. They have to have a reaction to it because it's supposed to be a dark moment. Like, your character is supposed to have a dark negative reaction to that goal. Luke being all devastated and everything. And they have to gain something from this. This is subconsciously gained. Like, the reader may pick up that the character has gained this, but the character should not pick up that they have gained this. This is something that is kind of a side thing for the character to have. That your character doesn't know they have. Well, it's too big. So, Luke gaining was the Force. My darkest moment is the camp gets destroyed by zombies. And half the people are killed, and it's because the main character just can't let other people do their job. He has to do everything himself. In this, his darkest moment, the thing he subconsciously gains that he uses later on, is his ability to trust that other people can do their job. So that's one of the big things that happens later on. Dragon. Dragon is here. Okay. And the dragon fight happens. Let's put the red dragon for the dragon fight. There. Okay. So that's kind of how it happens with the character. I'm making a road. Can I have road tiles? It's trees. I thought city stuff had road stuff. Yes, bridges, but not roads. Sorry, I do get distracted way too easily. Anyways, so I'll find the road in a second. So that's kind of what happens. Like he doesn't know he gains. Like there's a hint that he gains Obi-Wan's voice to help him trust in the Force when it tells Luke to run, but we don't actually know. Like Luke doesn't really know what he gained there. So it's very important for your characters to have that. Then the final battle is it's this big thing. It's very similar to part 3 where it's an outside event. However, rather than it happening to the main character jumps into it, like they move towards this place. Usually some of these are the strongest when the character has the option to not go out of it, like to escape. Like Luke could run away with Han, but he chooses to fight, and he moves towards the battle. Like it's his own choice to move towards the battle. Um, and then the battle is usually going poorly, like until like your character they have the Death Star plans, so they have part 1 to succeed. But even when Luke shoots at the hole, he can't make the shot with a targeting computer on. It's not until until part 8 where the character uses what they also gain from the price, like Obi-Wan's voice, that he actually can hit the hole and shoot the thing. So the final battle for me is a big magic dragon fight, which is going to happen in the forest area that they're trying to do, because they're trying to sneak into the dragon fortress, and they're going to have a magic, basically a giant magic zombie dragon fight, which is going to be really fun. And until he learns to trust all his friends or his new friends, that he's not going to be able to actually win the fight. And then the end is just the final snapshot that you want your reader to have when they leave the story. For what's it called? For Star Wars, it's the medal ceremony, like the Rebellion one. It's a big medal ceremony. Yay! I really wish I had just roads. Fields. Town markers. Cliffs. Bridge. Is it control? No, it's not control. Which one is it? Alt alternates it. I don't need alt. Pass. Let's just make a path. Straw path. Style. This one. Roughness. Not so rough because it's a highway. Color. Let's make it green. So it stand. No, not green. Green does not stand out. Let's make it purplish. Okay. Width relatively wide. No, that's too rough. Width wider. Yeah. It's like a civilized highway. Into the mountains. There's going to be a tunnel in the mountains. That is going to be kind of insane. That goes directly there. Symbols, regions, land. Okay. Yeah, and that's the end, and that's also my map that I'm going to use. What are we going to call this? We're going to call this Forest Road Dragon Fight map. We're going to export it. Export normal image. Yes. What? Forest Road. That's fine. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope that helps. I will actually post a text version into the comments or into the notes. Hopefully that'll help. Maybe it'll make it a little bit easier to read.